Hello Rockstars, my name is Gustav, but I'm better known as Gargudon on various social media pages. Today I am super excited to greet you all welcome to the very first episode of the new Gunslingers and Street Racers podcast here on GTABase. This podcast is hosted by me and is going to be focusing on everything Rockstar Games, from current games to potential future titles and everything in between. For each episode, I will be joined by a guest who I will be discussing a certain topic with, and today I am joined by Dirty Worker to talk about Grand Theft Auto 6. Say hi.
What's up, Gustav? Thanks for having me.
No problem. So just before we get started, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do here in the Rockstar community to those who might not know about you.
I have been playing Rockstar Games for, almost since the beginning. I played GTA 2, was probably the first game that I played from Rockstar without even knowing it, not even, being very conscious of game developer companies specifically. Just sort of, when I was a kid, we rented video games, from the local video store and that kind of thing. So like when GTA 3 came out, you would rent it and play it until you quote unquote beat it and then return it or, whatever. I didn't really pay attention a lot to the the specific development companies. I was more like, a lot of gamers of that generation, just looking at the cover art and saying, hey, I want to go try that out. But very quickly, I would say GTA became my favorite game far and away, and that started with GTA 3. It was so different, so irreverent. It felt like you were playing, sort of a gangster in Goodfellas or something. It felt like you got to be, the protagonist from your favorite movies. Whether, I say it's a gangster movie like Goodfellas or Scarface or something like that with Liberty City. I mean, it really felt like you had the opportunity to play as, some of those iconic characters. And it felt very real, or much more so than a lot of the other games that were out at the time. A lot of games were focused on, very fanciful kind of stuff. So I loved how sort of gritty and close to reality GTA was. It allowed you to live out, sort of your bad boy fantasies without catching any felony cases. I would say probably around 2013, 2014, when GTA 5 came out. That's when I started getting involved in social media, created a Twitter account and an Instagram account and those kind of things for my GTA character to engage with the community, just because, again, I love the game so much, and it was fun to, kind of link up with other people in the community that, share the same passion. And, from there I started making YouTube videos and that kind of thing. Not a big name in the community or anything like that. Not a big time YouTuber or anything. I just love the, the creative aspects of the games now, that you can capture photos and videos and, mix them up with music and stuff.
Yeah.
And, so.
Well, you are a big enough name to get a verified check mark on Twitter last time I checked.
Yeah.
So.
I'm verified on Twitter, which is pretty dope. It's really weird. I only have like 8,000 followers. Everybody sees my check mark and they're like, how the f*** did you get verified? I have no idea.
So as you can hear, Dirty Worker here is a super passionate Rockstar Games fan, and it's my pleasure to have you here today. So, just quickly before we start this, I want to make clear that everything we say related to GTA 6 in this video is pure speculation. None of it is official or confirmed by Rockstar, and I just wanted to say that given that there are a lot of fake news out there surrounding this topic. From Asnet Luke would say, boss man, the world, and Fernando. Now, with intros and explanations out of the way, let's get to it. So, the first thing I would like us to cover is, where would you like GTA 6 to be set, and how do you want that location to tie into the main story?
This is a good question, and this is a tough question because I think it sets the tone for all the questions to follow and sort of any GTA 6 speculation, because you have two things to consider when we say where will GTA 6 be set. You have both location and time within that question. The location could be anywhere on the planet, or up to and including moon bases, Mars bases, whatever else. But I think the time is a significant driver in terms of any kind of speculation as to what the game might look like. So as we see in Red Dead, if it's set in the late 1800s, you can expect to see certain technologies available, whereas if you look at GTA Online today with flying friggin' spaceships,
that's a sci-fi game nowadays. I don't even consider the most of that canon, but What am I to
It shouldn't
judge?
even be called Grand Theft Auto.
It should be
anymore.
called
It's
like
really
GTA
not.
2097 or something. Be
Yeah,
like
it's
this
something very
alternate
bizarre.
reality expansion almost. But but yeah, I get what you mean. But you know, pretty much or most of the time, GTA has been set the year it's been released. Of course, San Andreas and Vice City exceptions set in late 80s, early 90s. But you know, GTA 4 released in 2008 takes place there. GTA 5 released in 2013 takes place there 5 years after 4. So I think it's most likely to see, let's hypothetically say GTA 6 would come out in 2023. I think it's most likely it would just be set in 2023 then.
I think that is potentially both a good thing and a bad thing. It would be a good thing again, I think that it helps to sort of ground the game in realism, which at least for players like me is very appealing. We like that, where it feels like you're living an alternative lifestyle where you can afford Lamborghinis and yachts and that kind of thing, and get away with bank robberies without going to prison. It feels like it sort of scratches a primal itch that all of us have. So the closer it is grounded in realism, I think the better it would be. However, the challenge with that is what you see in GTA Online today is that you have, it's very limiting in terms of what content you can add to the game harmoniously. So you can add every car model that gets released over the next 5 years if the game has a 5-year or a 10-year shelf life. But to add things like an oppressor or a deluxo, as they've done, you can see they kind of run out of ideas. And they start adding stuff that is really, not
Absolutely.
harmonious with what the game is.
It's
and
funny you
that's
say
why
that
you have
because-
what we have in GTA Online today.
Because a lot of the cars, I think it was 2016, they like added new vehicles like every week or something. Even if that's like just a lazy, we already have an Infernus in the game, but here's an Infernus Classic and here's an Infernus Ultra Classic or something. Like they had like 3 to 4 variants of the same vehicle from what I've seen, and I don't even think I know like 90% of all the vehicles that have been added in the past 3-4 years.
Yeah, it's same for me.
Yeah.
I think, but again, in terms of, so if you look at it like this, if you set it, like I say, in present time, your ability to add new content is extremely limited if that content is intended to fit harmoniously within the universe you've created.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you end up with, very bizarre things like the Oppressor and the Deluxo, which are, to me, like invasive species.
I think
right?
just oh, sure, of course. I mean, I guess in terms of technology, like, they could definitely step up on like computer technology, like considering that has really evolved since 2013, and a lot more cases of like major companies like using it to spy on you basically have like hit the spotlight since GTA 5 came out. So that could also play like a key role, kind of not to make it like totally like Watch Dogs, but maybe like a hacking element could be implemented into the story.
Sure.
Not that like you're a hacker,
I think
but
all of those themes could potentially play in.
but
the
like
world has changed a lot in the past 8 years.
Yeah, as I said, not that the protagonist is a hacker, but like they work really close. I mean, you already have like Lester, who's like he's the team muscle in a way, in terms of making plans and scouting, everything, all that stuff. So yeah, but in terms of like actual location, let's talk about that for a second. I think a lot of it is saying, also fan theories and such, is saying Vice City as the next one. Like, we finally get an HD version of Vice City. What are your thoughts on that? Like,
I think,
are you cool with Vice City, or do you want somewhere else?
No, I mean, Vice City is probably my favorite game in the franchise. Just, because of, it's sort of an emotional attachment to it.
Oh, nostalgia, that's, of course.
Yeah, just going from the gray, Liberty City, kind of cold and windy and gloomy and everything kind of just gray and brown and drab, to the bright,
sunny
pastel colors and neons and with palm trees and sunshine. Like it was
and saxophones and sunshine and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was like going to sleep in, the friggin', miserable doldrums of winter and then waking up on a sandy beach somewhere. It was just amazing. It was
kind of the same.
Invigorating.
I've seen some people say that was kind of the same transition between 4 and 5. Like, you went from the gloomy streets of amazing HD Liberty City to sunny Los Santos with beaches and wannabe LAers and all that stuff, and millennials and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I think that I think fundamentally here, I think what you got to look at is, and I think any time in any of this speculation that people are making, you kind of have to look back at what they've done in the past to gain the best insights for what they're most likely to do in the future. And I would say Liberty City. I get the idea that people want to pick one location, but I think that in terms of scale and scope is way too small. I think we need to think much bigger, and I think we need to look at past behavior of Rockstar to try to anticipate what they're going to do next.
Then it's because they do almost like a Red Dead 2 that like they do smaller cities in a way, because in Red Dead 2, we have like Blackwater and Saint Denis, which are like the only major towns, but then again for cities on the map they are relatively small, and then there are all these surrounding nature areas and such. Is that what you're suggesting, that like they do more cities in a way in one big map, and then there's like these big nature areas between the cities?
Yeah, I think you have to look at what they have for available assets, right? Like Rockstar doesn't want to reinvent the wheel. That's extremely expensive to go building out new assets. Instead, I think we should anticipate them leveraging existing assets, because that's what they've always done.
Plus, I think it would be weird if Rockstar, like, considering how diverse like GTA 5's map is, I think it would be weird for Rockstar if they went back to making like only a city. And then let's say we went to Florida. I've never been there, but the nature areas around it would be like, swamps and bayous and stuff. And is that what you want to see in a GTA game in a way?
Yeah, right. There's not much opportunity there. No,
Plus, we've already had the bayou in Red Dead 2, and it could very quickly become a copy of that.
Yeah, I think they'll leverage that asset. Again, I think if you look at like Midnight Club, right, in 2008, if you went right now and put in Midnight Club and went riding around the city, and then popped it out and put in GTA 5 and went riding around Los Santos, you would very quickly see that they're almost identical, right? They had all of those assets built out, and all they did was upgrade and enhance them for GTA 5. And they have done that continuously. I mean, if you look at again, Red Dead Redemption, the original version versus Red Dead Redemption 2, they took existing assets and upgraded them. So my guess is in GTA 6, you're going to see them take existing assets and upgrade them. So how do you do that? I would suspect that we would see something like a miniaturized version of the U.S. I mean, if you look at you just go around the map, right? You have New York City up in Liberty City up in the northeast. You have Miami and Vice City down in the southeast. You have Saint Denis down in sort of the middle, down by New Orleans. You have Los Santos. You have Las Venturas, like Las Vegas. I mean, they already have a bunch of assets. Because I don't. And then the middle part is basically Red Dead, mountains and rivers and streams and all of that kind of thing. I
wanted you to mention Las Venturas, because I honestly think that kind of gets overlooked as a possible location in a way, because just imagining it, like, I would personally want that map more. Like, we have the city, and then even though we have seen it with like New Austin and such, I bet they could find a way to make like this new huge desert map around the city, because I've been to Vegas like for an evening last year, and the fun thing about it is it's literally in the middle of nowhere, out in the desert.
Literally.
And they're in Nevada. I mean, sure, you pass the Hoover Dam and maybe some like gas stations on the way there, but that's it.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's just freeways and desert, and then you're in this like giant plastic town in a way.
So
plus,
like if you look at Los Santos compared to Los Angeles, for example, it's about a 20-to-1 scale.
Look,
so
I'm gonna say it like this. I went to LA last year. If only Los Santos, or if only LA, the distances in LA were as short as they're in Los Santos, everything would be easier.
For sure. It's
LA is just too big. Period.
I was out there with my crew last year, the Reaper Lords. We met, and we do that at different locations. in the U.S. and in Europe. And yeah, we had fun. We went down to Santa Monica Pier and you know, all along the beaches and out to the docks and downtown and all over. And yeah, it's surreal to be able to stand, you know, on Santa Monica Pier and then think about being at, you know, Vespucci, and
Sure.
they're identical. They're identical.
Absolutely.
It's breathtaking.
Absolutely. But I also think, just to return to Ventura's there, I also think, you know, given, you know, the whole casino environment of Vegas and, you know, its history, you know, with the mafia starting it up in like the 20s or whenever it was, you know, it could tie into the main story pretty well. Like, you know, this criminal underworld of Ventura's, like, you know, sure, the casino, like the gambling environment may look like, you know, fine from the outside, glossy and all that stuff from there, but behind the scenes, you know, it's dark and there's a bunch of secrets. That could, like, just hypothetically speaking, you know, that could make Las Venturas like a good location. That's what I meant with, like, how the location ties in. Because, you know, in GTA 4, you know, New York City has always been called, you know, where dreams are made of. So that's basically why Nico goes there, you know, to start a new life. And his friend Bernie Crane, you know, that's why he went there. Because New York has always been known as the place of new beginnings. So that's kind of like the symbolic meaning of that, the setting being that there. And Los Santos, I guess it's just that, you know, LA has also always had that. So that's kind of why Michael went there as well, you know, a new beginning.
Right.
I just can't see necessarily, like, how would Vice City, like, how could that tie into the main story? Like, there must be, I haven't been to Miami, but I guess it would just be like the criminal environment, because
think about
I'm sure Miami has that.
Like this. Yeah, my guess is, again, you have some drivers here. You have drivers, again, that come back to scale and scope, right? I feel like Rockstar is going to be compelled to make a much bigger map. I would expect to see something like a miniaturized US with 5 or more cities
Major
on
cities.
The map.
Yeah.
And then the question is, how do you tie those together? And I think you have to look at, you know, the way that Rockstar always draws from, you know, pop culture and from movies and from, you know, the politics of the day and criminal organizations of the day and that kind of thing. You know, it wouldn't make sense to do a mafia-based, you know, sort of story theme this time around, because the old school mafia doesn't have, at least not publicly, the same kind of reach that it once had. It's not as big a part of the current culture. I think today, if you look at large-scale criminal organizations, you're talking about, you know, Mexican drug cartels, Colombian drug cartels. I think if you were to add the U.S. and maybe even Mexico or parts of South America as, you know, the major new expansion, I think that, you know, that would not surprise me. If you look at the popularity of, you know, shows like Narcos, you know, the Pablo Escobar stories that you see all over Netflix nowadays. You know, El Chapo, you know, Guzman has, you know, this incredible storyline if you are looking for inspiration for a protagonist. In the U.S., you have, you know, Latino culture exploding on so many different levels as, you know, such a big and booming and culturally vibrant part of the U.S. population now. My guess would be that you will see a shift more toward something like that. So I would expect things like a cartel theme, much more heavily Latino influenced.
Absolutely. I mean, that is kind of what I wanted us to cover here in the as the second point. Like, you know, what would we actually like to see the main story consist of, both in terms of like plot and protagonist. And it's interesting you say it, that, like, yeah, it could get like a Latino twist or something. Maybe you're playing as this, like, that's the thing. Like, what would I like to see for another GTA story? Because I'm gonna say GTA 4 is undoubtedly the best GTA story. It's like, you know, it's dark and it's emotional and, you know, it's just great. Like Nico's story, it's so tragic.
Yeah.
And especially ending the deal ending where Roman dies, like, it's so dark. Like, are you my God. Yeah. But also just, you know, throughout, like, you know, Nico, he's traumatized by the past. He comes to New York and has to work, you know, for everything from, you know, Italian mobsters to Russian gangsters. and get betrayed by Russian gangster to Irish hoods to everything in between just to find the man he's after.
And I think at the time it was appropriate, right? I mean, those were the major themes of the day, right? Italian gangster movies, Eastern European mafias. Those were the big themes of the day in terms of the criminal underworld. Whereas I think now it has largely, at least in the U.S., shifted more toward the cartels. And again, I think Rockstar is almost forced to make a much larger map. I mean, if you look at when we went from PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 to Xbox One and PlayStation 4, we went from 15-player lobby sizes up to 30-player lobby sizes. I don't think it's unreasonable to think with, the enhanced computing powers of the new consoles and PCs going forward that we wouldn't see it go from 30 players to 60 players or 100 players. And, if you're going to have that number of players in an online mode, you have to have a much larger map. And then, so you have to have a story that has the reach that ties into all those different areas. And this is where I think, the drug cartels of today have that kind of reach. They have that kind of scale without it seeming strange or forced. It's easy to say that, a Mexican drug cartel, for example, would have you run a mission to Las Venturas, to Los Santos, to Vice City, to Liberty City, to some Chicago, future city that they might add. I think that is to me anyway, in terms of tying into the story, tying the story into the imperative of a much larger scale map. I think that would give you the reach. So it's just purely speculation, obviously, but I would not be surprised to see something like that.
I just wanted to cover another thing, like in terms of the main stories. As I said, I love GTA 4 story just because let's say it's movie material, if you know what I mean. Like not everything, but you can make it into like a movie that people would recognize, like, an Eastern European ex-Balkan soldier on the run. And while I did enjoy GTA 5 story, I just finished a replay of it actually. I started some time ago. It's GTA 5. It's much more of like a buddy action comedy in a way. If you know what I mean? Like it's much more like Fast and Furious-y in a way, and just a little less serious. And not that, as I said, not that I didn't enjoy it, but it just didn't really have any emotional moments. At any point, really. Even if you kill Trevor or Michael at the end, it's just, it feels weird because ending C is the canon ending from how I understand it, and it's the best one, sure. But it's much more of like as I said, kind of like an action comedy in a way, GTA 5, than it is like a serious story.
Right.
And that's what I missed because if there's one thing Rockstar have proven with like games like Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, GTA 4, Max Payne 3 and stuff, like they can write a damn good story that also has its emotional payoffs if it wants to. They are capable of that. And as I said, I don't really know, because you could say, oh, this like criminal trying to get out the game. Of course that could be the plot for GTA 6, but then again that's also just a bit unoriginal in a way. I don't know. Like, I don't necessarily know what I'd like to see for a protagonist in a story there. All I know is I would like it to have a more serious tone again.
Yeah, for sure. No, I know exactly what you mean. And again, for me it's
like he starts losing the ones close to him,
with...
and it becomes
What's
like
that?
Like perhaps the protagonist, he starts losing those close to him, and that just like angers him even more.
A Punisher style protagonist.
Yeah, in a way, kind of vigilante style or something.
I think in terms of the protagonists in the future game, some predictions I would make is you are going to have a female option at the very least, where you can either play as a male or a female primary protagonist, or perhaps like they did in GTA 5 where you can switch around.
Sure.
Maybe, I think you should also... What's that?
Switch between a male and a female is the ideal choice, because you have these games like nowadays, like some of the new Assassin's Creed games, like the first thing you choose there is, do I want to play as a male or a female? And that's also the thing for the upcoming Viking game, but only one of them is canon. Like, why give me the choice if only one of them is canon? Why not, like, because there's another AC game where you switch between two characters, a brother and sister, and then you can play as each simultaneously, and each have their perks and special abilities, like GTA 5. Like, Trevor, he can go on a rampage. Franklin is better at driving, and Michael, he's like a dead-eyed badass. Yeah.
I would see that. I just primarily look at things like, again, in terms of past performance and current drivers of business decisions. That's kind of the perspective that I approach it from. And
Absolutely.
I think that, certainly female gamers are a growing population within the gaming community. They have been, underrepresented in GTA. And actually, I think that you're going to see, for sure, a female protagonist in one capacity or another, either as an alternative for the male protagonist or somehow the ability to swap between two for different reasons, different storylines, whatever. I think you'll expect to see that. And again, I would expect to see, a Latino protagonist as well, just because they're again a growing and vibrant part of the American sort of social fabric today, and represent a big part of the gaming community, and again have been underrepresented in terms of protagonists in past Rockstar games. And I think that Rockstar is evolving as a much more socially conscious company than they have been in the past, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that social consciousness in future games from Rockstar.
Actually, let's get back to this in a few moments for a later point I have, if that's cool, like the political stuff. But the next thing I would like us to cover, because I think we've covered like story, setting, all that stuff pretty good. The next thing I would like us to cover is, what would you like to see GTA 6's potential online multiplayer mode consist of, and how similar do you think it would be to the massively successful GTA Online?
Well, sadly, I think it's going to be very similar in a lot of ways, and probably a lot of the worst ways.
In a way, I had this thought earlier today. Maybe it would be best for Rockstar to kind of merge the current GTA Online with a new game, honestly, since like they can't stop milking GTA Online even if they wanted to.
I think that GTA again, you have business imperatives, right? I mean, that's a major revenue stream for them.
Absolutely, and that's why they do it.
People
I get that.
Years ago were telling me, "Oh, GTA Online's only going to go on for another year or two," and my comment to them was always, "GTA Online will go on as long as it makes money. It's that simple. It's a product."
I mean, most multiplayer games like typically last sure, you can maybe years later find a few people online, but when everybody's online is typically in the first, I say, year to year and a half after release. But the fact that here 7 years later, GTA Online is still one of the most populated online games ever is kaboom.
Well, it's because it's not like any other game, and this is something that the other gaming developers should really be paying attention to, and I hope they will, because I think Rockstar needs competition in this space. And not because I don't love Rockstar, I do, but competition is good, and right now they have a quasi-monopoly on this type of game, and it allows them to kind of run roughshod over the player base a little bit. And with competition, they would have to be more responsive to what the player base wants. And so I do hope to see that sort of spring up over time, because it makes so much money. These other game developers are crazy not to be looking at, hey, how can we make something similar? The way that GTA Online diverges from the rest of the field is if you look at a game like COD, right? I mean, you talk about that timeline, that year to year and a half timeline. Okay, well, if you're only playing with 12 maps and you're basically doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over, right? That gets tedious, and you'll start to see the player numbers decline over time as new games come out. The primary difference with GTA Online, it is not tedious. It is not repetitive like that, unless you choose for it to be such, right? There are grinders who run the same friggin' missions over and over and over and over and over again. That's one part of the population. But then you have new gamers coming in all the time, and you can buy all these different cars and all these different bikes and run all these different missions and play in free mode, and it's crazy, and you never know what you're going to encounter. It's not like, games like COD and some of these other games are they're almost like a side scroller in that, you know what it's going to be every time you log in, where in GTA Online, it's crazy. You never know what it's going to be. Absolutely. You hop into a lobby, you don't know if somebody's going to be sitting there doing a car show, or if you're going to get hit with an orbital cannon 70 times like I did last week. That kind of thing. It's extremely unique in that regard. It's new every time you log in.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways.
I guess in a perfect world, if GTA 6, let's say, had a new online mode, I guess in a way I I would like to see, the ideas behind GT Online, but ideally I would like to see a multiplayer mode solely consisting of what GT Online started out as, if you know what I mean. Before flying motorcycles and cars and calls from Bryony and Gaytoni and Ron Jackowski, so many people. I mean,
but this is why I say they need competition.
Yeah,
right. Because everybody hates that. That shit sucks. I mean, it sucks so bad. And yet they keep doing it to us.
Sure.
Let's
just go down memory lane real quick. Like, I think both of us remember the early. I'd say the first half year to year of GT Online, where it was like where $1 million was considered a fortune, and like hell, the best gun was like an automatic rifle, and the best way to make big money was grinding Rooftop Rumble for like 4 to 5 hours per session. Right. I did that like every weekend. Me and my friends, we would hop on, play that for a few hours, have like 400 or 500K, which back then was a fortune, but that can barely buy you anything today. Back when like it was just more chill and more fun in a way. Like it was simple. Like there's a free mode aspect. Sure, you can customize your character, clothes, tattoos, cars, weapons, all that stuff. And then, like, if that's what you want to do, free mode, like, sure, you can do that. And if you're just into classic PvP, you can also do that. Deathmatch, race. I mean, people barely play, like, deathmatches anymore. At least I have a hard time finding deathmatches on GT Online nowadays.
Well, and a lot of that has to do with all the exploits in the game. I mean, they just have not done a good job. They have peer-to-peer servers for GTA Online, which in one regard is good because you get to play with some people in Australia that have a horrible internet connection, or somebody in Brazil who has a horrible internet connection, right? So you get to meet those people, and that's fun and that's wonderful, and I love it, because of the friends that I've made from around the world. But the reality is, from a PvP perspective, for things like TDMs, the game is completely broken, right? This is why these people who worry about KD and GTA, I don't understand. The game is broken. The hit registration is trash. You have people who are playing, 50 milliseconds behind each other, right? Because their ping rate is so terrible, and the distance that their signal has to travel from Australia, it's hopping through 6 different servers to get to Rockstar and bounce back out to you again, sitting in the U.S. The game is a friggin' mess. So the competitive aspects of GTA Online are absolute trash, and the competitive PvP community has figured that out. Like the TDM heads, I don't play TDMs anymore because these kids are running programs all the time. They're running VPNs, so you could have somebody who's literally sitting in Manhattan 6 blocks from the Rockstar servers, and he's connecting to the internet through Egypt so that he can get lag and drop packets and get terrible hit registration when somebody shoots at him, and get essentially that double damage. We've all had it happen in GTA where you're standing there and you get hit with 17 bullets in half a second. You're like, what the frig just happened? Well, all his packets finally arrived. You're shooting over to the left, but meanwhile he's over to the right. So the PvP aspect of the game is trash, and it's because Rockstar doesn't do things like populate lobbies based on sort of good solid ping rates. So the latency effect just makes the competitive aspects of the game absolute garbage. And people are, again, it's rife for exploits because you don't lag out of a lobby when you run a program. You get these kids running, I'm not going to say which ones because I don't want anybody frigging Googling them and see more of these sweaty kids in all these matches. But the exploits in the game have completely run amok, and it takes a lot of fun out of those competitive aspects of the game. I think there's an opportunity for improvement there, and hopefully as technology advances and internet connection speeds advance, and that kind of thing, they can do a much better job with matchmaking, people that have again low latency and that kind of thing. And if you run a program to lag and you're falling through the map and that kind of thing, you should lag right out of the session. If you're not delivering enough packets, you should go.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't, the other players shouldn't be subjected to that.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I guess the funny thing is, like, I think it was yesterday I watched like the original. I just felt like rewatching, the original GT Online gameplay video. Do you remember that from like August 2013?
Yeah, I saw it on the PlayStation 5 announcement.
One of the funny things is just reading the comments, saying only OGs remember this, and I'm like, yeah, man, because it's almost sad in a way. I'm beginning to feel like soon, GTA, some of the GTA online players are going to be younger than the actual game. Like, maybe not now, but within
some
too
of them
long,
are for sure.
That could happen, and I'm just like,
6-year-olds on the mic all the time,
and I'm just like,
away.
What? And I mean, I have a certain respect for day one players. October 1st, 20 or whenever we could get on, because it had the worst launch ever. I think we remember that.
It was
like,
brutal.
It took me 3 to 4 days to fully get on. Like,
it was a
complete
mess.
the intro and all that stuff. But I mean, I just hope GTA, if GTA 6 gets like a totally new multiplayer mode, I just hope it's simplified and is like what GTA Online was in the beginning. I'd say the first year and a half, 2 years, kind of in that time period.
I think
and stays true to the GTA formula, because that was it in the beginning. Earn money, earn small money, you earn big money, then you purchase a big house, then you purchase some nice fast cars and some fancy clothes. I mean, as you said, like flying motorcycles and laser guns and arena war. Like, sure, playing arena war can be fun sometimes maybe, but what the hell does it have to do with Grand Theft Auto? Nothing.
Well, this is where they shot themselves in the foot, because if you look at GTA Online again, I've been saying this for years. Lots of people have said things like, "Oh, GTA Online is not going to get supported past this date, past that date, blah blah blah." And I'm like, no, it's a product. It will continue to get supported, because all it is data. All you have to do is go in and add new data to add new content. Like, it's coding. It's not that big a deal. It's all pumped out over the internet, so they can absolutely evolve that game continuously forever. So there is no reason to tear down GTA Online and start up a new GTA Online or have a GTA 6 Online or anything like that. They could just continuously build out and add to quote-unquote GTA Online. It doesn't have to have a version. The problem is, and what Rockstar did again in terms of shooting themselves in the foot, is they have piled so much trash content into GTA Online now that even if GTA 6, even if they wanted to make a more purer version, if you will, of GTA, they can't do that in an online version now, because the minute you log in, you have all these flying spaceships buzzing around with homing rockets, blowing everything up. Like, it's stupid.
Right.
So if they had stuck true to Grand Theft Auto instead of this Saints Row nonsense that they have built out to appeal to 12-year-olds. Unfortunately, they have lost that opportunity in terms of GTA 6, unless they just wipe everything, which again defeats the purpose of trying to do a continuous online version year after year after year.
It's also
you can't just add GTA 6 to GTA 5 Online, is what I'm trying to say, because it's so packed with all the trash from GTA 5 Online.
Like, it's funny you say it, because making it this huge success was never planned, and in the beginning it was always said that GTA Online takes place before GTA 5, but then Rockstar were just lazy and said, "Oh, now it moves with the years," and I'm like, yeah, but not in my head canon. Like, I think a good example of it is a character like Gay Tony. Like, he was such a great character in the Battle of Gay Tony, and then you waste him to be there in the background of this nightclub DLC, and he will constantly call you in game until you purchase a nightclub. Now that I think of it, in any single player game, like, you would get a call from person one time, but here you get calls from, as I say, Bryony from Arena War, Tony, Ron, everyone, until you purchase.
This is the thing that's driving me crazy. Is, I've been playing lately, and
it's almost
my character constantly freezes. So I'm in a PvP situation, and all of a sudden Malk calls, and I can't use my character, and boom, I get popped. You know what I mean? It's so extremely frustrating.
It's almost like Rockstar. It's their way of making an indirect pay to play. Like, you keep getting 100%. These calls until you spend like $2 million in-game money buying this unnecessary
it's
stuff.
Straight up spam. That's all it is.
And I miss the times also when you didn't have to purchase a hangar or a arena workshop or arcade or whatever just to play like the new content. And it's fun because I think I thought about this the other day. Like, I think where GTA Online seriously declined in terms of realism was probably in 2017 with the gun running updates and Doomsday Heist updates, from how I remember.
I think it goes back to LTS myself, but yeah.
Last team I actually quite enjoyed. It was
That's when they added the Insurgent, which was absurd at the time.
Oh yeah, the armored car.
7 rockets to blow up and stuff like that. That's just where the imbalancing came into the game, in my opinion, right?
But then again, those kind of maybe a little overpowered, but at least a vehicle like that exists IRL, like armored trucks like that.
Yeah.
I think last day, in a way, I miss when DLCs, and I think that stopped happening when Rockstar in 2015 said we can't support PS3, Xbox 360 anymore. We're solely focusing on new gen now. Yep. I think something happened with the DLCs, and that is where they went from. Because I love doing that, DLC where it was just new cars, new clothes, and those event weekends. Do you remember those?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I
played on a lot of Rockstar live streams for those. They were amazing.
Right. I mean, I always remember it was so exciting. Like I was excited just to hop on with my friends. We would play the playlist they had made with like double RP and cash, and just mess around with the new vehicles, and that was just a fun time. And as I said, that was like flight school, business, high life, last team standing, ill-gotten gains, those. But then like after ill-gotten gains, if you remember that one, that is where it just became bigger and more in-game money got involved. Yacht and VIP work and organizations and so much other stuff. Yeah, and not that some of those elements didn't work. It was just unnecessarily big.
Well, this is why I say too, it goes back to what I said when you asked initially what I think it will be like, when the new online comes out, if it'll be like the old online. And sadly, I think they're going to bring a lot of the stuff that we hate over to the new version, because they've become a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation. And the reality is, they're a publicly traded company, and at publicly traded companies, you have quarterly revenue and profit objectives that you have to hit. And if you don't, you get fired, or if you don't get your bonus, or if you don't, your stock option values don't go up. And anybody who thinks that executives aren't thinking about that are childish, right? If you have a guy or a gal who is making, $300,000 a year base salary, and guess what? They have, potentially $1 million in stock compensation if the stock performs well. If you think that they're not going to make decisions that drive that revenue and profit, you're crazy. They're operating in personal interest in a lot of ways. You can be artistic, you can love gaming and all of that, but at the end of the day, when you're talking about millions of dollars, you're going to see people behave in their own interest. And I think that as Rockstar shifted from a privately held company to a publicly traded company, there's significantly more financial pressure on them to produce more money. How do you produce more money? You start packing in all of this stuff that's super expensive, to where you either have to grind your life away as if it's a second job, or you buy shark cards. And they've created an environment in which, if you want to survive, you have to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars. And some people, quite frankly, are just going to take the shortcut and buy shark cards.
Yeah. It's funny you say it, because I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like as of lately, making money in GTA Online has become way easier and quicker. If that's like, those triple cash and RP events or whatever it is. But I can nowadays play for maybe like 2-3 hours or something, and all of a sudden I will have like, I will have made $500,000, and then like one time I check, I have 13 mil. Now I have 17 in the span of like a week. Like, what?
Yep. Because you have Rockstar has two primary metrics, right? They have two primary metrics in terms of the health of GTA Online. In any kind of a business, you have, key performance indicators, right? To tell you whether or not your business is trending in a good direction or a bad direction, and you can tell it right away. It needs to be a simple, very simple criteria. I need to be able to look at a dashboard and say things are good or things are bad. And these are the key things that tell me whether they're good or bad. And at Rockstar, I feel like the two primary drivers are, number one, gameplay hours, and number two, obviously, revenue from incremental sales. So those as primary drivers are completely relational. They depend on each other, right? You have to have vibrant and fun lobbies, online lobbies, if people are going to get online and buy shark cards, right? If you get online and there's nobody playing, then why are you going to go buy a shark card to get a jet or an oppressor or whatever and try to live and do your deliveries and all of that? You're not going to do it, right?
Of course not. I'm just going to say this, and then I would like us to move on to the final point I have. But in general, I think the shark cards also made for those like who don't necessarily have the time to grind, like people like you who are working, or like just other people, like a guy like me who's 21, like perhaps, and hasn't really been working for the past 6 months here because of COVID. Like, I have much more gaming time on my hands. Not that I necessarily take advantage of it, but if people who work,
got
9
more
to
money
5
than you
every
got
day.
time, you can buy a shotgun. I get it.
Like they don't have the time to play a bit every evening and get $8 million. They just purchase them right away, and then bam, they have them. So yeah. All right, I think we've covered this pretty good. So I would like us to move on to the final point I have, which is, as GTA is known for parodying modern-day America, internet culture, and politics amongst many things, what do you hope to see GTA 6 focus on in terms of parodying these very things?
Like I said before, I think that Rockstar, does a fantastic job of looking at culture and,
Today.
Whether it's musical influences, fashion influences,
in a way, it's almost like
they do a fantastic job with it.
Simpsons in a way, because, as I said, I've been playing a little bit of GTA 5 story mode here over the last few weeks, because some of the things they mention, like things that weren't really popular in 2013, but are so heated topics today, like political correctness and transgender and all that stuff. They talk about that in GTA 5, but really, who were war commenting about that on the internet in 2013? Not as many as there are today. That's for sure. So it's almost like Rockstar are also just with GTA 4 in a way, because that was when social media was young, yet it takes the piss out of like social media and celebrity culture and all that stuff. And that was back in 2008, which is pretty impressive. And that seems like ancient today.
Yeah.
But impressive for its time.
There's certainly plenty of material for them to go by now.
I mean, Facebook was only 4 years old then, and Twitter was only 2 and such. And those are like nearing up on 15 and 20 years now. It's weird.
Yeah, you're probably going to see a Snapmatic camera phone in GTA 6 where you can add Snapchat-like filters, put puppy ears,
the dog and everything,
like all of that kind of stuff.
That for some reason reminds me, I would love to see how Rockstar are going to take the piss out of TikTok. That is the curse.
All of that. Yeah, you can expect to see all of that. Here's the thing, though.
The thing is, character, you remember Tracy from GTA 5, Michael's daughter, right?
Yeah.
Why do I have a feeling she's gonna there's gonna be an Easter egg, Tracy's TikTok profile or something?
She could be president.
She would be perfect
in the new
given
game.
How her character
if you think about the trajectory of Donald Trump, somebody like that as a U.S. president, guy starts out as a business developer.
Yeah.
He has this this reputation for being
that's another thing.
Call it a ladies' man or a womanizer, depending on your perspective. Then you look at him, being a reality TV star, and everybody writing him off and saying there's no way.
It's funny
we would elect some crazy reality TV star to be president, and now he's the most powerful man on the friggin' planet.
Do you remember in GTA 5, there's also Jock Cranley? Do you remember him? And Sue Murray, which, I mean, he's like a Donald Trump man.
Yeah, Jock Cranley
so funny,
president.
There's the Sue Murray who's like, I care about people, and then there's him, all that, America, 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 and I used to be an action movie star, and, again, what the hell, Rockstar? Like, did you learn from The Simpsons or what?
I'll tell you, though, the world has changed, and Rockstar has changed dramatically over the past 10 years. If you look at, sort of the woke culture that has taken hold in society, that's pervasive everywhere in all major corporations. And Rockstar is now a major corporation that has a major sort of woke streak running through it. I'll be very interested to see if, in fact, the future game has the same kind of irreverent, anybody can get it kind of, humor that it has had in past games. I don't know if you can do today in a corporate culture that has, since had, the Me Too movements and Black Lives Matter.
It's funny you mentioned Me Too, because that has definitely, I mean, I'm not going to say GTA is sexist, but you do have features such as private dances in the strip clubs, and, you can pick up prostitutes on the street. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if features like that were removed, especially if we have as we talked about earlier, have a playable female character. Simply because, out of respect, in a way.
I think you can look at Red Dead. I
Oh
think
yeah,
you can look
sure.
at Red
I mean,
Dead. You can look
picking up
at
prostitutes
what
has
it.
never been an option there. John will say, "I'm a married man," and Arthur is like, he's Arthur.
Yeah, I think there's a ton that is left out of that game based on what was really going on in America in that time period.
Late 1890s and
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah, I think you can see woke influence on Red Dead Redemption, and I think it's likely that you're going to see more of that on GTA 6. And it just makes me curious to see how they're going to balance that. I mean, just look at the personnel departures over the past 10 years. It's a very different, sort of creative community at Rockstar than it was when previous games were developed. I mean, you had Leslie Benzies, you had Dan Houser, you had Laszlo. Those guys are gone. I mean, it was very much a male-dominated industry, very much a male-dominated player base, it was sort of catered toward that. But that's not the case anymore. You have far more female executives, far more female developers, far more female players. The demographics have shifted dramatically compared to what they were when people were, making purple dildo jokes in GTA. So it'll be interesting to see, if we get a more, and again, it's just a big corporation now. It's not like it was in the old days. If some developer says, "Oh, I'm offended by this line in the game or this, context within the game," the corporation can lose potentially hundreds of millions of dollars.
And actually,
how do you have a creative conversation among males and females today in an open environment where you talk about things like prostitution and the kind of things that you've seen in past GTAs? How can you sit in a corporate boardroom and have those kind of conversations now without the fear of potentially being sued because you say things that are considered extremely inappropriate?
That is one of the things I'm honestly going to say I'm super excited to see how they're going to parody, the whole political correctness. Because while I can follow it at points like you obviously shouldn't be a racist, but there are also points, like give me that, where it just becomes too much. Like everyone is offended by everything. And
it feels good to be offended. It's human nature.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just excited to see how Rockstar, because, as I said, since GTA 5...
I'm not excited. I'm in fear of it. I'm afraid they're going to water down the game that I love.
Do you remember, in GTA 5, you can take, like, that Vinewood tour, around Vinewood. When you drive past the, what is the Chinese theater, RRL, the guide actually says, there it's called the Oriental Theater. There she says, "My daughter says it's no longer politically correct to say Oriental," which, I just want to say it was ahead of its time then, and the whole political correctness and who's offended by what. I mean, there are so many stupid examples of it. One that just came to my mind, an X-Men billboard being removed because it shows Oscar Isaac choking Jennifer Lawrence's character, and some say, "Oh, that's offensive to women, that's misogynistic." And I'm like, it's a fictional movie and fictional characters. I mean, find something else to be angry over, like Trump or the war in Syria or something. Like,
I think that just, for me personally, I've been, extremely fortunate in life through my own hard work, you know what I mean? Through busting my butt. And I think for me, I've been at times in my life, very poor and grown up in a really negative kind of environment where you get to see the negativity that poverty produces, from drugs and alcohol to violence and frustration and depression and so forth. For me, I grew up, working on fishing boats. So I have a very good understanding of what true hard work is. I've grown up in an environment where we didn't have food or we didn't have lights or we didn't have a telephone. So I understand really, truly what actual hardship looks like. And I think that, quite frankly, for a lot of people, they don't understand that. They sort of try to relate or try to project their offense, they're being offended onto other things. For me personally, I'm like, look, if I can keep my lights on, I can keep my children fed, I can keep, making my mortgage payment, man, it's going to take a lot to make me unhappy or to make me offended. You know what I mean? Because those are the things that really matter. I want my family to be healthy. I want my bills to be paid. I want my life to be fulfilling and engaging and stimulating. And I think when you have all of those things, human nature is such that we're restless, we're uncomfortable. I mean, it's why we went to the moon, it's why we're going to Mars. Nothing is ever good enough. So when you have everything, you start looking at, other little things to pick at and get offended by and be angry about. And that's just human nature. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah.
But I do agree. I think at some point you have to be a grown up and say, hey, we can make a joke about this, and guess what? The context matters. The tone matters. I mean, you can call somebody a name, and the tone and way in which you say it is what matters, right?
Yeah.
You're just making a sound with your face, right? The word doesn't matter. It's what you intend to communicate, right?
Yeah.
That's all words
Like,
are. So if you're communicating hate and vitriol and disgust and diminishing someone else, it doesn't matter if you call them a sunny day or you call them some racial slur, if the intent is to cause that person harm, right? So
No,
I
of
think
course
that
not.
the way that people are getting offended
Yeah.
so much by all this little thing, all these little jokes, and kind of, it's like, I'm not trying to hurt you. Nobody's trying to hold you down, hold you back. It's a joke. We can all joke about it. We're all grown-ups. What's the big deal? And I think that's what was beautiful about Rockstar Games in the past, is they pushed those limits. They pushed those edges. And through doing so, you can have, a community of people that get along and laugh at the same jokes, and you can laugh at me for this and I can laugh at you for that. But at the end of the day, it's all love, right?
Absolutely.
It's when you start making those situations uncomfortable and making them awkward and making people feel, attacked when they're not. I think that we do a great disservice to society, and we see it in real life, and we see it in gaming now, and it's unfortunate.
Sure, and I mean, in a way, I just hope they kind of take the piss out of, like, those who, as you say, if you say something like a racial slur, that's obviously horrible, and you shouldn't do that. But I hope they make fun of those who get offended by, did you just assume my gender or something? Like, find something else to be offended over.
We'll see some Karens. We'll see some Antifa types. We'll see some.
That's another thing.
I always think of that lady who was screaming and crying when Donald Trump got elected, as just sort of the archetype of the that sort of left. I think you'll see the the redneck militia types.
Absolutely.
I think there's certainly within today's silly culture, online radicalization, whether you're left or you're right leaning. I mean, they're both becoming so divergent from anything that looks like normal, rational thought. I think there's plenty of sort of material for Rockstar to poke fun at, from whichever political leaning they want to.
I actually just wanted to cover that as well, because that is something that has also exploded since 2013, is gender politics. Not that I don't stand behind the LGBT movement or something, but I mean, it just gets too much. What? You can identify yourself as 50 different genders or sexualities, and I'm just just stop, okay? And I mean,
I'm perfectly fine.
I might get hate for this, but
whatever they
personally,
want, as long as they don't, again, impact my life in a negative fashion.
Sure. And I mean, I might get hell for saying this, but personally, I believe the whole. I think as a society, we need to come up with new words for that. But the word transgender is pseudoscience, because, I mean, I think as a society, we need to be better to separate between mental genders and biological genders, because biologically there's two, period. Pull down your pants, you've got your answer. But mentally, there's just something we don't understand. But it's almost like as a society, we make that appear that it's physical genders, and I'm just stop.
I don't personally. Again, I'll go back to what I said before. I don't presume to know how anyone else feels inside, outside, what their struggles are. We all have our different issues that we deal with. If you were born in a male body and you feel like you identify more with a female, I can't pretend to know what that feels like, what that challenge is. So I tend to just, again, respect it, not judge it, but don't mess with me. Do you know what I mean? Don't impose upon me your feelings or your offense, or I hear people, I'm a heterosexual white man, right? So I get this, I see this stuff in culture all the time, where it's perfectly acceptable to attack heterosexual white men with all this white privilege nonsense, it's fun because it's almost like dirt poor. It's almost like my ass. I have no rich uncles, that did anything for me. I don't appreciate it. No. And I don't put it on anybody else that way. It's too broad a generalization.
I will give you that. It's almost
individuals.
It's almost like today. It's being hetero is a thing of the past. It's cool to be gay and trans and pan and metrosexual or whatever it's called nowadays. Like, that's the cool thing today. It's almost like it.
I think that's pretty natural.
I actually wanted to cover this actually, because as I said, you shouldn't like over exaggerate, for example, gay representation in movies, games, whatever, but if you execute it correctly, it can work. I think one of the, like, obviously there are, for example, some movies where it's just like, it feels very forced, but then there are other movies where maybe, like, an example, have you seen from last year, the film Booksmart? It's a comedy?
No, not that I can recall.
Maybe you heard of it. It's kind of like a girl version of the ever so famous Superbad, which I presume you know.
Yeah.
The classic,
yeah.
where one of them happens to be gay. But there, you know, it's executed authentically, and it doesn't feel forced, and it's actually executed kind of sweet. You know, where you as a viewer, that's actually a pretty good, cute love story. What I wanted to know is, do you think GTA is gonna try
a couple of things at play that influence that? And I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, if you think about, you know, just demographics, just statistics, people who identify as, you know, homosexual or whatever represent an extremely small minority within the population, right? 3 to 5%, something like that. But they are highly overrepresented in media, pop culture, TV shows, movies, you know, that kind of thing. Absolutely. And I think part of that is because, you know, there is a desire by society to normalize that so that those people aren't persecuted and don't have to suffer. We want to kind of make people, you know, more comfortable with that lifestyle choice so that it doesn't feel so foreign, because, you know, human beings tend to be very cruel toward things that are foreign. So I think that's why you see such an overrepresentation of it in culture today. I think it's a conscious effort to try to normalize that. And in a lot of ways, I think it's a good thing for society.
Absolutely. I think, I don't want to say it's forced, but kind of those misadventurous comedies like this one I just mentioned and Superbad, like, you wouldn't see a gay character in one of those films like 10 years ago, but you would today. And if that is because society like forces it to do it in a way, like, I don't really care as long as it's executed
conscious. I think
well.
You do have, again, I think there's social benefit from it to an extent. I think the challenge is, you end up creating, you know, oftentimes very stereotypical characters. You know, there are certain shows, like I think of Will and Grace, if you ever watched that show, where, you know, Will is a gay man, but he is just a regular dude. He goes to work, he's funny, he cooks, he watches shows, he's just a regular guy. Whereas I think in a lot of the shows, you know, they tend to use a stereotype of
very feminine,
you know, homosexuals that are, you know, sort of, it kind of reminds me of the blaxploitation films of the 70s, where there's this, you know, sort of over, you know, just a caricature of individuals like that is, you know, not fair. Guy.
And that's saying like
I think that's pretty cheap. You know, pretty lazy writing.
that all like gay females, like, they have short hair and wear biker jeans. No, some of them can have long hair and wear a ton of makeup and wear like jewelry and, like, you know,
break your damn heart. Like, are you sure? Really? Damn it.
like they be very feminine. It's
for sure.
So normal. Sure. But what I wanted to know is actually, we kind of went off track, but do you think it would be possible for GTA 6 to tie in possibly like this, a side story like this, like tie in the like LGBT movement in any way?
Not only do I think is it possible, but I think it's likely. You know, again, I think that Rockstar is a much more, again, woke company than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. That's why I say I think it's very likely that you're going to see a female protagonist. And again, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. I think female gamers should have somebody like that to relate with.
I think it's cool to have, like, since we are so used to male protagonists. I mean, I play as a female character on both GTA and Red Dead Online, just because it's cool. Like, I get different clothing options, which I wouldn't have as my male character, which is really cool for this character. And I mean, in a perfect world, like, perhaps like we have in GTA 6, you know, we have diversity amongst characters, maybe African American, a Latino maybe, and of course your white dude, and perhaps a female too. And then like amongst those characters, one of them is like bi or gay. Like,
I think it's very likely.
I would be totally comfortable with that, because It's also, as I mentioned earlier, I've become quite a big fan of, if you've seen them, the Fast and Furious films lately. I don't know if you've seen them.
I saw one or two, and then I was kind of like, okay, I get
it.
But
they drive nowadays, fast. Where they're basically just like superhero films, you know, the thing people don't acknowledge those for enough, I think, is how racially diverse you are. You know, you have your team, you have Vin Diesel, who's white, and then you have Michelle Rodriguez, who's Latino, and then you have Ludacris, and Tyrese, who are black, and you have an Asian guy as well. Like, it's so diverse, that team. Like, yeah. And people don't give it enough love for that. And then some would say it's misogynistic as hell. But yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely, I guess, overall, as you can hear, I definitely hope there are certain parts of, like, gender politics and political correctness. Like, it's almost like Rockstar, almost in a Family Guy way. Like, you know, dark jokes, no holds barred. Go and make your dark jokes. Take the piss out of, like, people who are easily offended by, I was identified as a male when I'm in reality a pan-metro transsexual, whatever.
Yeah. Well, like I said,
and also
I don't know
in terms of,
be possible.
Yeah, gender politics and political correctness is what I hope they will just, like, go full throttle at.
I don't think they will. I think Rockstar has changed so much as a corporation.
Absolutely.
That I think that. Do I think there may be, you know, sort of woke humor in the game? Yes, but I think it'll actually be from a serious perspective, like
Absolutely.
a social commentary perspective.
Yeah. Like, they shouldn't do anything that can be
in a joking way.
Can be seen as hateful. For example, like, as we say, it would be weird for them to kind of incorporate, like, these, let's say, more. Like LGBT friendly things, but then at the same time they take the piss out of it in a way. It would. They need to find a balance.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful to have diverse communities and diverse perspectives and all of that kind of thing. And I think that, you know, I think that it's likely that we'll see more of those themes in future games. I just don't know if it will be with the same tone that it has been in the past, because the demographics have changed so much. Again, look at departures of, you know, Leslie and Dan and Laszlo, and you know what I mean. Those guys had a sort of perspective on the world that was a very, you know, kind of boyish perspective, if you will.
Very...
you know, I think the company has changed culturally dramatically since, you know, GTA 5 was written, and certainly others. Sure. So I think you're going to see that reflected in the humor in new versions. I just don't think you can get away with stuff like
the heads of Rockstar at that point. If that is, whoever's left of those, like, original GTA guys, as we talked about, like Aaron Garbett or Sam Houser or folks like those whoever's left, and whoever they'll hire, like as writers and game directors and whatnot.
Yeah, so you have two driving forces, like I said. One driving force are the individuals and what their worldview is and what their perspective is, right? So you have certain people who are engaged in that creative process, and they may sincerely hold a particular worldview, and you're going to see that reflected in the final product.
Absolutely.
The other thing that you have is corporate interest and liability, in that you cannot afford to have employee lawsuits. You cannot afford to have, you know, your name as a publicly traded company associated with any kind of, like, Me Too movement type stuff. So I think there are two drivers that are going to chill out future games.
Rockstar have been through lawsuits, everything from, if you know his name, Jack Thompson. I saw a video on him the other day, and that lawyer.
Did he write the Grand Theft Auto book, or is that the guy who wrote that?
No, he's like this lawyer who just blames video games for every major shooting. And there's actually a mission in GTA 4 where you go to kill a lawyer, if you remember that, which is a bit of a protest against him in a way, like this lawyer who blackmails and whatnot.
It's called out-of-court settlement. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Maybe, yeah. But the mission there is called Final Interview, and before you kill him, he says, like, something, guns don't kill people, video games do. And I'm like, look, dude, I can do so many other things in video games than shoot people. I can play tennis. I can do yoga. I can do so many other things. But yeah. But I'll say this, and then perhaps we can wrap this part up. Like, it's as you say, that, like, the current Rockstar A team, you know, Dan Houser, Leslie Benzies, Laszlo, those people, you know, those are some of the same folks that worked on And I guess that would be their last work, Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, they did write that as well. And if anything, that just shows that, they can handle a serious story just as well as they can, like, kind of a more satirical, boyish, as you call it, story like Grand Theft Auto. And at the same time, I think some of those political agendas, that slowly started turning up in Red Dead 2 already. Like, a character like Sadie Adler, she's badass, is all I can say. And, she's like strong woman power representation, and I have nothing against that. And then, just in, the gang, there's so much diversity. You have Charles, who's like half black, half Native American, and you have Javier Escuela, and you have everyone, really. So
yeah, I think we'll see more of that.
Absolutely.
As we should.
All right, so I think we've covered all this pretty good. Do you have anything you would like to ask me before we slowly wrap this up?
Yeah, I'm just curious with the podcast. This is a new venture for you. I want to wish you great luck. I thank you so much for having me on. Of all the people you could pick throughout the community, I really it was very nice. It felt great to have you invite me. So I'm curious. What are you going to do with the podcast? What's the plan for it? What's the vision for it?
I'm going to be working on this in collaboration with GTABase, who are a great Rockstar news coverage fan site. I'm going to be hosting and all that stuff, and then we're going to publish it through a GTABase here, where you're going to be watching this. And I'm pretty excited to get started on this project. I have been doing some other gaming podcasts for the past few years, an Assassin's Creed one, which I've had some fun times doing, like, since 2016. But given Assassins, I'm kind of falling off AC a little bit, and I would just like to do this as well. I'm gonna focus on probably this for a little while and just try and get as many episodes and discuss as many good things related to Rockstar as possible. And I can already say now that the next episode is going to be Red Dead Redemption 2 focused. And then after that, we'll see maybe some Red Dead episodes, some GTA themed episodes. Hell, we might even go into some Max Payne themed episodes at some point. So yeah, anything Rockstar related, really. And I'm pretty excited to get started on this. So yeah,
that sounds great. I hope you get a lot of personal satisfaction out of it.
Absolutely. And hell, if anything, it's fun just to talk a bunch of crap with other folks.
Indeed.
So, yeah. All right. If that's it, then I just want to thank everyone for watching and listening to this first ever episode of Gunslingers and Street Racers, and I hope all of you enjoyed listening to us discuss this topic. So stay up to date on everything happening here on GTABase and more things Rockstar, such as some virtual photography from GTA 5 and RDR2. Links to our as well as my social media pages will be in the description below, should you be interested in checking that out. And be sure to follow Dirty Worker as well. Links to his socials can also be found below. Do you have anything planned, live streams or anything soon?
Nah, nothing important.
Okay. And finally, keep an eye out for more episodes coming sooner or later here on GTABase. And finally, if anyone has feedback or topic ideas for the podcast, feel more than free to leave it in the comments section below. Now, once again, thanks for watching and listening, everyone. I hope to see all of you again for future episodes. And until those come out, stay safe in these still ongoing pandemic times, and nonetheless, keep the awesome community what it is. And finally, thanks to Dirty Worker here for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks again for having me. It was awesome.
Absolutely. And that sums it up for episode 1 of Gunslingers and Street Racers. Stay safe and active, everyone. See you later, Rockstars. Keep